Two. Hey, good morning to or good afternoon. It's a holiday Monday edition of the Good Morning Show. David Cohen with you, and we're with Jennifer Polansky, who's a space holder, and she creates safe space for women to come home to themselves, to love their bodies and know who they truly are. She's got a background in Tantra and yoga, Ayurvedic education, somatic and sexual embodiment, energy medicine, nutrition, and mindfulness. She was also an actress. Her work supports women to embody their divine feminine within and turn on their intuition to find their voice and cultivate the confidence and self-love to use it. So good day, good morning, Jennifer. Nice to have you here on this holiday Monday edition of the Good Morning Show. And really what this show is about, it's about educating people, inspiring people, getting our viewers and listeners to think a little differently about life. You know, we're isolated, we have a little more time to think instead of, you know, watching TV and tuning into sort of, you know, all the bad news that's out there. You know, let's be inspired to start something different. And what I want to talk to you about is this feminine rising thing. Why, like, we're going through such change, like, in humanity now, and I think there's many layers to what's happening now in terms of this, you know, COVID-19 thing, and you know, one of the layers is we're ascending and we're moving up, we're rising up. Why is the feminine energy rising now? Like, why now at this juncture in humanity?
First of all, thank you for having me and that lovely introduction. You know, I smiled when you said we're ascending, we're rising, and you know what I also see is that we are descending and plunging deeply into our stuff. Mm-hmm. Because I think that one of the issues one of the things that's created a lot of challenge is this idea around the light, ascension, rise. I mean, I say rise, I help women rise in love with themselves, rather I help women fall in love with themselves. But just to, yeah, this idea of like rising, ascension, light. The feminine is the darkness, is the depths of the Mother Earth, is the deep void, the mystery. And it's when we can find comfort going in there that we can actually come up. And so I think that is what the feminine has been doing for a long time, is that once, you know, there's been a lot of pushing the feminine out of religion, of places of power, of places of respect. And so she's gone inward. The feminine never left. You know, she was never wiped out. She just went inward. And now she's coming up because the world is ready, because we're ready for this. We're ready for a change. And so it's almost like this going deep inward in order to come up as our true selves. And so that's something that came when you mentioned rising. And so what was the question that you asked?
Why now? Why is this feminine energy rising now? Like, why now in this point in time? Like, what sort of maybe prompted this to start to come up to the surface?
That's a great question. And I think that we have gotten to a place of such imbalance that there was nowhere else to go. for many years, the feminine has not been put in a place of respect, to a point where so many women are now so deeply in their masculine.
Mm-hmm.
Because it was if I act feminine, I won't get ahead in business, or I won't get what I want. And so there's this emphasis on being very masculine, and ultimately what it does is it causes women to be completely against their natural way of being.
So what is the natural, what is the natural way of being? And maybe better yet, what's the distinction between the masculine and the feminine?
So the masculine is quite linear, and there's no good or bad. There's two polarities to one pole of love.
Right.
The masculine is this divine protector, linear, logical, the observer. It's what observes. It's you think of conception. It's the penetrative force of the universe. The feminine is the receptive force of the universe. The feminine is the nurturing. The feminine is the depth and the emotion. And for various reasons and for a long time, we've been told that that's weak. That to be receptive and emotional and sensitive is actually weak, when in fact, you look at a mother, you look at a woman who's birthing a child, there is nothing weak about that.
Yeah.
A woman who's in her divine feminine power, there is nothing weak about that. But when a woman is trying to control or is not listening to her own cycles because she's afraid of being told that she's weak, or of not getting ahead, or of not being respected, that's what sets us off balance. And men too, because men are human beings, and human beings are cyclical. Just like nature, humans are part of nature, and nature is cyclical. And so when we try and just be linear, go, 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 it leads to burnout and not acknowledging and honoring all parts of ourselves, which is why I believe the feminine is rising, because we're waking up to the fact that, okay, what we've been doing is not working. Right. Mental health is at an all-time, mental health issues are at an all-time high. Look at the physical state of health.
Oh, yeah.
Most of developed countries. The balance is severely off balance. That is, my website is actually being redone. So in about a week, you'll have a brand new website. States very clearly what I do.
So the balance, you talk about the balance, and I guess it's the yin and the yang, the dark, the light. I guess the distinction between masculine and feminine is, and the masculine energy and the patriarchal energy that we've been living in.
There's a distinction there.
Yeah.
Masculine and patriarchy aren't, like, the patriarchal energy is like a death energy. The masculine is beautiful. We need the masculine.
Okay.
The wounded masculine leads to a patriarchal way of being.
Okay, so what's the wounded masculine then? Like, what's causing those wounds?
Many things. One thing is a disconnect from the divine feminine. Another is a fear of power being taken away. When we are not connected to ourselves, when we are not tuned in and feel safe to express our emotions, the energy in motion that is moving throughout our body, and it gets stuck because we're not able to express those energies, we become out of balance, and fear sets in. Scarcity sets in. These are not our natural state. Our natural state of being, our natural balanced state of being, is one of health and abundance.
Wow.
And so when we're not tuning in to an entire aspect of ourselves, fear starts to rise and take over. And so when the masculine doesn't feel safe to be its true self, and just for ease, I'll say him, but we all have masculine, feminine. It doesn't mean man, woman. But when the masculine doesn't feel safe or comfortable to be its or his true self, then it will try and grasp and try and control. And control is an aspect of the wounded masculine. Protection is an aspect of the divine masculine, to protect and want to support and show up and be in service, because there's a belief that there is enough for everyone. But when there's that scarcity, that fear that I'm going to have my power taken away, or I'm not allowed to express myself, then it leads to trying to have power over.
If men embody their inner feminine, does that then mean they lose their masculinity?
No, by no means. If anything, it will support them in strengthening their divine masculine, because they're not denying a part of themselves. Again, the wounded masculine, for so many reasons, but a big one is this denying a whole part of themselves. And so when they feel safe to be who they are, then their natural essence shows up. If for years, I was so deeply in my masculine, and it was a fear of my feminine. It was a fear of not being respected. It was a fear of being in an industry where if I was too feminine, then I wouldn't be taken seriously, and I would be prey. My gosh, working in the entertainment industry is like a real, I won't use swear words, but it's a real mind mess.
Yeah.
And so for a long time, I had this like armor, and so I looked the way I looked on screen with all the makeup and my headshot and this like beautiful feminine, and yet I was so masculine. And it was because I didn't feel safe in my feminine. I didn't feel safe even with the masculine. And so as I came to, really it was meditation and studying Tantra that helped me to understand what are these polarities and what is an example of the divine masculine. What does that look like? And as I was able to find that in myself, it allowed my feminine to feel safe enough to soften and receive, and it allowed me to flow and be who I truly was, which, my natural feminine essence, my natural essence is feminine. In this life, I've chosen a woman's body, and this is the body that I'm moving through this life in. And for a long time, I didn't feel safe in it.
Yeah, especially in that industry, and with all we've heard over the past couple of years with the Weinstein trial and
yeah, it still goes on, but it's coming to the surface more, and that's also part of why is the feminine rising up now, because she's been down there for so long and has gained such strength to say no more.
And if we look at Mother Earth and Father God, kind of the male
Father Sky, yeah,
Father Sky, whatever, the male female mix, even Mother Earth is saying enough, Like, enough. You know, I see this as like, go to your room and have a little quiet moment and start to rethink things. What's your
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. 100%. Um, hmm.
I want to also go back to your transformation. So
Mm,
what prompted it? Because here you are in the, you know, the acting, you know, field, which is really, it's all like smoke and mirrors anyway. What prompted it? And then um, what did it what did it look like before and then now? Like, you know, like, what's the difference between the way you were before, more in your masculine, and to now where you're really embracing your feminine and helping
mm,
other women do the same?
yeah. I utter and complete burnout, really.
Mm,
I never thought that I was doing enough, especially as an actor.
yeah.
It's,
So much
you know,
rejection too, right?
hmm?
So much rejection.
Oh my gosh, constantly being rejected.
Mm-hmm.
And and so I never thought I was doing enough, even though I was like out of the house in the morning and coming home late at night. I didn't feel like what I was doing was good enough. And that is a reflection of this separation that we all feel and experience. And somewhere along the line, it got triggered, whether it was early on in childhood or throughout our school years, that this program of I have to do something in order to be worthy of love.
Mm-hmm.
So I think a lot of people, and I'll speak for myself, play out played out my life for a long time chasing this thing of like, if I just get here, then I'll be worthy of love. And it kept me in that masculine focus, linear way of being, trying to achieve something, because that's an aspect of the masculine as well, is this trying to achieve something. And the transformation really happened over a period of 10 years.
Oh yeah.
But it
This
began,
isn't a quick fix.
no, but it began with some books that really opened up my mind. In my last year of university, I did a character study on a woman who really thought in a way, like had a perspective on life that I'd never experienced before. She was a mother. And so hearing her was like a whole paradigm shift. The Four Agreements was a big
Mm-hmm.
one that
Don
really,
Miguel Ruiz, yeah.
really shifted things. And then being in an acting program for 4 years where I was constantly looking inward. So it was a beautiful, journaling opportunity for 4 years to really get to know myself. Meanwhile, it was also perpetuating this need for validation, because that's what you get. That's kind of a, what's the word? An occupational hazard with acting, is like it feeds this need for constant validation from the outside, to be told, am I doing a good job? Am I okay? Do you love me? Am I worthy of love? And so first I moved to LA and then to New York, and I was in New York for 4.5 years. And when I lived in New York, I started finding meditation. It was this beautiful, the Siddha Yoga Meditation Center in Manhattan. And every Tuesday, there was a meditation, and I started going there. And then I started reading this book on Ayurveda. And I created a morning routine, and I would wake up before the sunrise every day. And I did it for a month. And I'd never committed to something like that before, but there was something in me that was just ready. And I meditated every morning. I was doing Deepak Chopra and Oprah's 21-day meditation challenge right the day that I started. It was beautifully synchronistic, and that really started to shift the way that I saw the world. And at that point, I was already getting into yoga, initially because I wanted a good workout. I wanted to lose weight. I was still acting. My body, I was always in a fight with my body. At the time, I was carrying 25 pounds more than I am now, which, you may not have thought at the time, like, she's an overweight person, but I didn't look like the other women that were going for the same roles that I did. And so it kept me in this place of like, I'm not good enough. My body isn't good enough. So that's why I started yoga. But then it started to permeate into every aspect of my life. And I ended up connecting with a Tantra teacher, and I apprenticed with her for 2 years, studying Reiki and somatic and sexual embodiment, working with both men and women and couples. And it snowballed. And at one point, I remember the turning point was I was walking through Manhattan one day and I looked up at a billboard, and I don't know if it was for fragrance or makeup, but I just saw this, woman's flawless face, which is very photoshopped.
Mm-hmm.
And I just looked up at it and I thought, oh my gosh, is that really what I want? For little girls to look up at my photoshopped face and say, that's what I'm supposed to look like. And my heart, I was just like, I can't be part of the problem anymore. I can't do this. And at that point, I had been part of a collective of women, and having this sisterhood around me, which I'd never had before. I had a really hard time growing up in school. I'm an only child to a single mama. And I didn't fit in with anyone. And so having these women around me who all accepted me and supported me, and we supported each other, it was brand new. And so with that, I was able to start moving away from acting. And at that point I said, I don't want to be an actor anymore. I want to be a healer. And I had no idea how I was ever going to make a living. I just knew that this felt good. And so I did it. And I had this beautiful energy medicine training right around that time that had me realize just how deeply in my masculine I was. And it was through that I learned tools and practices to come home into my feminine. And after that, it's history. It just went from there.
Yeah. Sigmund Freud, his brother-in-law was Edward Bernays. And he also, studied psychology, but, got into the advertising world and kind of like, did psychology for evil as opposed to good, like Sigmund Freud did. And so a lot of the advertising, and you mentioned that billboard that we see on TV and the media that we see on TV is all about, we're not good enough. A lot of the ads are, it's about a lack or we're not enough. And I think, as we ascend, as we rise, we have to realize that we're just fine. We're part of, all that is, God, source, whatever you want to say. And then that in and of itself is good enough. And that, to me, that's what you talked about receiving, that we're fine the way we are. We're deserving of the life we want, just the way we are. We're good enough. We don't have anything left to prove anymore. What's your take?
Yeah. Billboards and advertisements, and they're all over the place. They're all everywhere. Over the place.
Or even today, it's like, like the guys, drinking beer at the beach. It's like, are you man enough, kind of thing. And it's like,
every single advertisement is so carefully crafted to get us to buy. And why would we need to buy something? Because we don't have enough, or we're not enough as we are. And so we need this thing in order to be enough in order to be worthy of love, because that's really, that's the deepest thing, is love and mother's love, you know, to be loved by the mother that birthed us. And I don't mean our earth mother, but this like primordial nothingness, this great mystery, this depth that birthed us into creation, which I really think that we should be mindful of as we, you know, reconsider all of these religions that have proposed a male god. You know, maybe we can go into that in a minute, but I won't go into that now. But yeah, this idea of not enough, need this thing outside of ourselves in order to be okay. And what that does is it disconnects us. It keeps us separate from our source, because the source that birthed us is a reflection of our source within. And, you know, just to make a point where the masculine comes in is the healthy boundaries around that, is the protection around that, is the observing of all of this, observing with love and with non-judgmental awareness. So that's the aspect of the masculine, and we need that. We need that. This isn't just about the feminine. But what this does is it creates a disconnect from ourself, from our source, from ourself. And that, I believe, is at the heart of mental health.
Yes.
Is a disconnect from, like, we're all up here, very heady, believing that we're separate. Meanwhile, our bodies are down here, our feeling bodies, our energy body, and we're not paying attention. We're not connected to it, and it makes us feel crazy.
But that disconnect, I know personally for me, started when I was younger, and I don't know if I had the tools then to sort of reconnect.
Of course,
I did have a traumatic experience and as a kid, and you know, and so there was part of me that said, screw it, you know. And then that storyline has sort of permeated throughout my whole life until I had an incident a couple of years ago with a foot infection that got me back to that, and to dialogue with that inner child, and to heal that, you know. I talked about ascending, Jennifer, and ascension is that collectively we're moving into our heart center. We're moving from the, you know, if we look at like chakras, like, you know, we're moving from the base, the root, the fear, you know, all that stuff into a heart center. So to me, heart is about self-love and love for others. How can we move gracefully into that heart center and really, you know, really embrace ourselves and that we are enough?
That's a really beautiful question. I believe that we move into our heart by keeping ourselves grounded. And I agree that the lower chakras, this is definitely where fear and guilt and shame lies, in our first and second and third chakra. And we've been very holding on to that, in a state of holding on to that, and very focused on that. However, as we rise up into our heart, we want to make sure that we are grounded. And so I believe strengthening the connection to our root, because just because we've been in these, the wounded aspects of our lower chakras, I think that, you know, I'm going to make a blanket statement and say probably close to everyone could stand a little root chakra healing. And one of the best ways that I know to do that is to connect to the earth, is to just sit down on the earth, I mean, the people, the amount of people. A girlfriend of mine lives in Miami, and she said that they opened up the beach
Mm.
for a day for like several hours, and by the end of the day, I forget the number she said, because it was so heartbreaking, but like, you know, more than like several tons of garbage on the beach. And I just like this is the disconnect, is this disconnection from our mother, from the fact that we live on a planet that is a reflection of us. The body of the planet is a reflection of our bodies. And so while we're polluting the planet with garbage, we're also polluting our bodies, because so many people think that, you know, they need alcohol in order to be fun, to take the edge off. The cravings that people have for sweet and sugar because they're not connected to their second chakra, the sweetness, the pleasure, the sensuality of life. This is Tantra. This is what Tantra teaches, is the unification of it all. And so it's acknowledging what's there, and it's really connecting, plugging back into the earth, and healing that root chakra connection. And, you know, I keep saying connection, because that's the crux of it, is that somewhere along the line, somewhere along the way, there was a trauma and there was separation. And just like you said, we don't have the tools. We're not given the tools in our public school system to deal with these traumas, to understand what's happening in our body, because we're too busy learning about his story that isn't relevant to our present state a lot of the time. It's important to understand where we came from, but a lot of the stories in those books aren't actually reflective of the truth of where we came from.
Right. And you know, even Eckhart Tolle talks about just being in the now of it.
And that's an issue in and of itself. Yeah. So we're like learning lies along with not learning how to take care of our bodies. Meanwhile, we're suppressing our natural desires and being told that sex and sexuality is unclean and don't touch it unless you're married. So we've got all these people that are coming into their bodies and into puberty who are like, what's happening to me? And it's becoming this pressure cooker. And what happens in a pressure cooker when you don't lift the lid a little bit or stir it around or give it some love, the lid flies off. And so of course the masculine is so wounded, isn't sure what the heck to do, because the masculine needs the feminine. The feminine is this beautiful mother energy that the masculine feels so disconnected from. And it's all this big like shit show, because no one knows how to express how they're really feeling, because they're afraid of being ostracized and not loved.
Or not enough.
Meanwhile, we've got these primal needs and desires and expressions, but we're told that we're not allowed to feel them. And it just, it leads to a lot of wounding, and a lot of the wounded masculine trying to take what it, you know, naturally desires, which is love, is the nurturing of the feminine. But so many boys and then men don't know how to ask for that, don't know how to say, hey, what I really just need right now is to be held. And so they look for the feminine in other ways that they feel that they've been taught are more appropriate. Meanwhile, women have no idea how to express their needs because they've just been taken from for so long. And if they want the love of the masculine, well, then here's my sexuality, because I know that if I give that to you, you'll give me love. You know, meanwhile, like women are giving sex for love and men are giving love for sex, and it like doesn't actually fulfill any of our deepest needs. So how do we move into the heart? We heal our connection to our root and to our sexuality and our sensuality, and we come to a place of allowing and understanding that we have these needs for love and nurturing, and to connect to this source of mother that is the earth, and to respect her and respect ourselves.
Wow. Just want to take a moment just to bring that all in, because it was really powerful. I have a couple questions left just due to time. You work with women, healing and counseling and doing, you know, the various work you do. What happens if women don't begin to acknowledge their femininity? What can occur?
They atrophy. They atrophy, and no one feels any balance. When women don't acknowledge their own feminine, then they're not acknowledging their truest selves. You know, the deepest aspect and core of their being, and ultimately they're not acknowledging the mother, the earth.
But what about, you know, I find like in my dating life, which is pretty limited right now, yeah, you know, sex would have to be 6 feet apart right now. Just kidding. But I find I often meet women that are not available emotionally. Is that something that shows up? Is there anything else that shows up in their world, their life, their day-to-day life?
When women don't, I also just want to acknowledge like all humans and all beings and all expressions of the feminine. This is by no means, you know, just women and men. As being in a woman's body, one is the embodiment of the feminine, and therefore that will be their superpower. It doesn't mean that they, you know, can't have or won't have a strong masculine or be very connected to their masculine. But to be, for women whose natural essence is feminine, if they are not connected to their feminine, then they're not allowing themselves to receive. They're not allowing themselves to be penetrated by the love of the masculine. And maybe that's because there was a deep trauma and they feel unsafe with that masculine. And so coming home to our feminine is a way to nurture and nourish ourselves and allow ourselves the space to heal, so that we can allow ourselves to be supported and to be held. Because a woman who is deeply in her masculine in a way that isn't balanced won't allow herself to receive, and she'll get burnt out. Won't allow herself to meet a man who is available for her. She'll continue to meet men who aren't available. Gosh, my dating track record was always unavailable men. Men who met me and saw me and were like, wow, you're totally amazing, but didn't want to commit to me because I never allowed myself to just be feminine. I never allowed, there wasn't space for a man to come into my life. And so I attracted these men who didn't want to date me, you know, who wanted to like have a fling, but not date me. And so pretty quickly I realized, wait a second, this, I'm not interested in this. And so I never really dated. There was always like, you know, someone I was texting with, maybe, but like a real depth of connection, it wasn't until the moment actually, that I started getting really in tune with my feminine, that a man actually came into my life who I could allow to hold me. And so, you know, it's the same thing for men. It's whatever space we're taking up within ourselves means that there isn't space for someone else to come in.
And as a man, and I got a couple of years on you, you know, when maybe if I'm sick or I feel lonely, or, you know, maybe I'm fear or I'm having one of those days, you know what? I still want to be held by my mom, you know, although she's passed on, but you still want your mommy, even, I don't care what age you are, you still want, and, you know, and your mom represents all of that, right? This is a really profound conversation today, and I really enjoyed it, Jennifer. My last question for you is, does the role of men and women need to change? And if you were to gaze into your crystal ball, what would you like to see?
It's an interesting question. I mean, does the role of men and women have to change?
Yeah, the dynamic.
Oh, the dynamic, yes, 100%. And by you know, I like to say create balance, because I think you know, to say this has to change is inherently resisting it, and anything that we resist is going to persist.
Right.
And so the first thing is to acknowledge and allow, and that's really the most feminine thing that we can do, is to allow ourselves to be exactly as we are.
Right.
What was the second part?
Well, just, you know, if you're to gaze in your crystal ball, what would that, what would a you know, that ultimate future look like? In terms of the new, the relating between men and women?
You know, it's women continuing to come home to themselves. It's women continuing to like be surrounded by other women. Sisterhood is what saved me and continues to. And that's why I've created the programs that I have. We have one starting this Friday, actually, on the new moon, May 22nd, and it's a 4-month program where we go through all of this, all of the tools and the practices to tune into our heart, to tune into our womb. That's the big one, is connecting back to our womb and rooting that down into the earth through our connection to our yoni, our sacred space. The yoni, for those who don't know what that is, it's, you know, to say vagina is actually, it's just the inner canal, which, if you think about it, anatomically connects the womb down to the earth. This is this beautiful channel. But the vulva, the clitoris, the labia, this whole beautiful sacred space of woman is her yoni, her sacred yoni, and it is what connects us to the earth, womb to earth. And so, yeah, it would look like women coming home to their bodies, connecting to the womb, which we really didn't talk about, but this space within them that is a portal to infinite potential, a portal to the universe, to the spirit realm. It's what brings through a baby, a human life. It's also where we hold all of our dreams and our visions. And it's also the place that is the most receptive place in our body, our womb. And so women hold all the trauma, all the experiences that we've ever had, also ancestral trauma that we come into this life in, is held in the womb. And so it's consciously clearing and transmuting that energy and allowing that space to be the primordial great mystery that it is. So into my crystal ball, I see women embodying, getting out of their heads and into their bodies and appreciating the sensuality of life and their sensuality and their sexuality for their own sake, but like not for someone else's sake, but unto themselves. And in this way, we open up the space for the men in our lives, because as we become more comfortable with our own expression, men will start to want to show up and be there in service to the goddess, to the feminine, and men will also feel more comfortable leaning into this divine feminine energy where they can feel so safe, and in that safety they'll be able to express themselves more without feeling judged. So it's finding that balance. And I say that, and I mean, many people, many leaders, great leaders have said that, you know, the Western woman, but really woman will be what creates balance, will change the world, what creates balance in this world. And I believe that it's not because it's on our shoulders, but it's because we're that powerful. And the feminine is that strong and powerful that we can actually do that we can actually create this and do this as we are held by our sisters, as we allow ourselves to be supported and nourished and nurtured in ourselves. We create that balance outside of ourselves.
And men need to do the same thing.
Absolutely. It's two ways. I mean, men can't just wait for the women. But I think, you know, that's happening too. There's, as more women are waking up, more men are waking up. And as more men are learning how to honor women, women are coming into their divinity. It's a balance for sure.
Yeah, I like that. And, you know, for men to kind of wonder about embracing their heart center, to, you know, embracing self-love, practicing that, acknowledging who they are, you know, and you say that the feminine tendencies to, you want to allow, to receive, to be the receptor. You know, in a martial art, they talk about receiving the hit, you know, allowing the hit, right? And then defending. You don't have to beat somebody up to a pulp. You know, you want it. There's sort of there's an ebb and a flow to it all, and there's the receiving, and then there's the giving, and the receiving and the giving, and that, you know, in true martial arts, that's kind of what it's about, right? We're out of time, but just share with us one more time about your upcoming course on Friday, and and I'll just go back to the share screen too.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, this is a program that I basically created based on what would have supported me in this 10-year journey, and what continues to support me. These are practices that I have been cultivating and doing. Like, these are practices that I do every day. And ultimately, it's a 4-month program, 4 moon cycles, where we move through a flow of tuning into our hearts, where our soul resides, learning how to love and accept ourselves, and the practices to come home to self-love and really let go of self-doubt, to embody our worthiness. And then when we move into the womb heart in the 2nd month, the 2nd moon cycle, we already have the foundation, so that as those ancestral programs come up, as all those habits that, you know, keep us in the same pattern over and over again, I keep meeting the same guy, I keep ending, you know, as we see those patterns come to the surface, we're able to love and acknowledge and transmute them, so that we can actually truly clear what we've been holding. And again, the womb is where we hold all of our dreams and our visions. And as we are able to hear the womb voice and tune in to that inner guidance, then that's our true self. You know, we come home to who we really are. And
Well, and we're giving birth to something new right now, right?
absolutely.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, women come to actually know, who am I? Who is my true self? What is my authentic expression? And in the third month is the yoni heart, is tuning into what is my connection? What is my relationship with the sacred intelligence that is my yoni, that is the divine gatekeeper to my womb space, that is what connects me to the earth, that is the source of my pleasure and sensuality in life. And then the fourth month is integration, is how do I actually bring this into my life? And it's like, you know, we kind of take the training wheels off in that last month, but we're still like, you've still got hands on either side of you, you know, as you're riding, because you're still in the sisterhood. And it's, you know, there's a reason why I don't do it as a go at your own pace, self-taught, because I want it to be, this is a journey that we all move through together. And we have group calls and moon rituals and ceremonies. And it's an opportunity for women to attune themselves to supportive sisterhood, so that once the program completes, first of all, they've made these lifelong connections with women, and their energy is attuned to the vibration of supportive sisterhood. And so they begin to attract and magnetize it into their life, even though the, you know, the program is complete. And that's what I found, is that it started out as these like online sisterhoods that I was part of, that weren't even Zoom calls. You know, we called into a conference line and just like listened to each other actually when we first started. And what it's become is that I am now a vibrational match for awakened women, for sisterhood, for women who I feel I can really be vulnerable with and share my heart with and share my authentic truth with.
And it begins May 22nd here.
It begins on Friday. Yeah. And so, yeah, for anyone who is curious, definitely going to my website, and right there in Wild Feminine Freedom, just underneath, there's a button to have a chat with me. That is going to be the best way to get the download and to see if this is a fit.
Beautiful. What a joy talking to you today. Yeah, Jennifer, thank you. Jennifer Polansky.ca is the website.
Yeah.
I'm going to, for those just chilling out on a holiday Monday, I hope you enjoyed today's show. I know I sure enjoyed our conversation. It sure surprised me. And we'll be back, I think, on Friday with another show. And then I'm going to go down to once a week and introduce a new show soon. So, and it's a show for small business owners. So I'm excited about that. I really appreciate this, Jennifer. Thank you. And
thank you.
For those watching, thank you. Tap into our Patreon page. We're open for donations. We have various tiers, so you get certain things. And that's how we do this. So, and just have a really good holiday Monday and a good week ahead. Jennifer, thanks again, okay?
Thank you so much, David. I really, really appreciated chatting with you.
Yeah, you as well. Thank you.